Welcome to the Leadercast podcast, a weekly deep dive into the stories that transformed our guests into leaders worth following. I'm your host, Joe Boyd. If you've been enjoying the podcast, thank you so much for being a listener. One simple thing you can do to help us out is give a review wherever you listen. Today's guest is Judi Holler. Judi is a contributor here on the Leadercast platform. She was a speaker at our Amplify event. She's a keynote speaker and an author and a good friend of ours. And Judi and I have very parallel lives in that the Second City and improv comedy changed our directions forever. You're going to love this episode. You'll hear about how she deals with imposter syndrome and how a yes and attitude gets her through life. Let's see it. Hi, Judi Holler. Welcome to the Leadercast podcast.
What's going on, Joe Boyd? I'm so happy to be here. Leadercast. That's a big word. That's a big word.
Yeah.
Leadercast.
We are thrilled to have you. You absolutely were amazing and killed it at our Amplify event.
Mm-hmm.
And for those who don't know, you had to fill in last minute because you were on my list to bring in at some point. Trust me, but you bailed us out big time because one of our folks got COVID, and you came in. You absolutely were amazing. So thanks for doing that. It was awesome.
Oh man, it was such a joy. It was great to see you again because it had been a couple of years, but what an event. And also there's a story in there because, this ability to bet on yourself when you get called out of the bullpen and, somebody asks you to step up to the plate and hit that home run or hit that triple to do what we need to do for a customer or an event. Like, are you ready for that moment? And I think so many times we don't think about that. I mean, improv, we can get into my story here, but so much of my work is rooted in the improv theater. And there's this moment in improv, and Joe, you have an experience in improv where we're on stage, right? And so we're all lined up. And a lot of times if we're doing gamey improv, you've got two people out front playing in a scene and the rest of us are on the back line, okay? And at any moment, you could be tapped in.
Yep.
And I was tapped in.
Yeah.
And I had a choice to make in that moment. I could have done the safe thing and said, no, I'm not ready. Oh my God, what do you mean? No slides, no improv. I got to be there tomorrow. Or I could have bet on myself and done the brave thing. And I chose the brave thing. And because of that, so many incredible things were illuminated for me as a leader, as a performer, as an entrepreneur. And, just thank you for trusting me with that moment. It was awesome.
Well, thanks for saying yes.
Yeah. Yes. And
also, I knew you would. I knew yeah. So, folks that listen to the podcast know that I have a background in improv.
Yeah.
And at this point, they're probably really tired of me talking about it, but it's my story and my reality. A couple weeks back, a month or so ago, maybe, we had Kelly Leonard from the Second City on.
Yeah.
And we talked improv, and he was amazing. And obviously we actually didn't meet doing improv, but found out later we had that connection after we did meet. So we'll be talking about that as we go. And if you listen to this, just deal with it, because it's what we like to talk about. So there will be a lot of improv talk this podcast. But before that, I actually have spent some time with you and know you a bit, but I don't know much at all about little Judi and how you grew up and what you were like as a kid. So as the folks that listen know, we kind of use Joseph Campbell's hero's journey as a template just to see, like, early on, what were your ambitions? What did you want to do? What was burning in your heart? What adventure were you called to? And then kind of starting your story there. So if you could let us know what you were like as a little kid. And I love to ask the question, were there any stories that you were into, or adventure stories or cartoons or anything that started to kind of pull something out of you?
Yes, of course. I think the earliest sort of hero I had was Dorothy from Wizard of Oz.
Oh, I thought you were going to say Golden Girls.
Golden Girls. Oh, but I love that. Oh my God, that's so funny.
Dorothy from Wizard of Oz. Okay.
I would have probably been more, if I would have picked a Golden Girl hero, I'd probably be a little more like Sophia or Rose. Those would have been. But I mean, I think every
some
woman
Blanche.
has a little, I was gonna say every woman has a little Blanche in her. You know me. I love my sequin. I don't know. I'm a little bit of all the Golden Girls. No, but I'm talking about the Dorothy from the Wizard of Oz. Like,
okay.
I remember watching the Wizard of Oz and literally feeling transformed by her adventure. I'm a Midwest girl, so
Yeah.
being disrupted by a tornado in Kansas wasn't, I'm from Missouri,
Yeah.
wasn't, was very relatable to me. And I think, when I was probably, fifth to maybe third to seventh grade, when I was really watching that movie when it came out. I don't know, I'm terrible with years, but it was in color and stuff. I remember being like, oh wow, to be disrupted and sort of blown away from this basic life in the Midwest
Yeah.
to this adventure land of Oz felt so cool to me. And the costumes and the Good Witch and the sequin shoes and all the people she met on that journey, it just really spoke to me. And even to this day, I reference a lot of that film in my work because I think there is such a power in confronting the disruption and being sort of disrupted, which life is improv. We can't avoid disruption. None of us wake up with a script. So again, we're going to
Yeah.
come back
Right.
to improv because life is improv. But also realizing that you don't have to do it alone. And there are a lot of people that can help you along the way. And that actually Oz doesn't even have the answer.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Right.
You have always had it. Like
Yeah.
it's always been inside of you. And I think if Dorothy would have heard from the Good Witch at the very end, and this was what stood out to me the most, like, the Good Witch would have said to Dorothy, like, listen, Dorothy, all you really needed to do was click your heels together 3 times and you would have been home. Dorothy would have never believed her. She would have been like, are you kidding me? That's all I
Yeah.
needed to do. So, but she wouldn't have believed her. Like she needed to go on that journey to tap
Absolutely.
into the power that she always had. And I think as a woman, as a young girl, now a woman, that was big for me because I didn't have that in my house. Like I have and had a very broken relationship with my mom.
Yeah.
And I don't think little girls can be what we don't see.
Mm.
And so Dorothy for me was this first example of, oh, hold on. It doesn't have to feel scary and you can break the cycle and you can make something new for yourself. And I've got enough inside of me to go be something different than what I'm witnessing in my house. And that's forever transformed me.
So that I'm glad that you really thought through that. That's and it's such Wizard of Oz is like for me it's probably Star Wars, but some of those
Ooh,
movies are so rooted in Campbell's actual work. So Wizard of Oz is like a masterclass in the hero's journey and being
masterclass.
yeah, from a because the first thing is you're in your normal life and then you get called to an adventure. She got sucked into one, but like it wasn't much of her choice. Uh
Yeah.
but so for you, like you said, you're in Missouri as a kid. It was kind of rural Missouri.
Yeah, like we were
Yeah.
like a suburb, but yeah,
Yeah.
like yeah, we had a quarry and a big, a lot of woods around us. So we were outside catching
Yeah.
crawdads. I mean, I grew up very Midwestern, lower middle class, but yeah, like suburb, but
Yeah.
Missouri.
So as a little kid, you're thinking like it'd be fun to be Dorothy, but can you pinpoint the moment when you were growing up when maybe you felt a call to a specific adventure, like a realistic thing you could go do with your life? And what was that? What was that? Mhm.
Yes, kind of ironically, it is exactly what I'm doing with my life. It took me a bit of a journey to get
Yep.
to where I am today because I didn't, I work professionally. And Joe alluded to this at the top of the show. I'm a keynote speaker, author, entrepreneur. I now claim entrepreneur because
Yeah.
that is what
You
I'm
go.
doing. We share that now. We make things out of nothing, which is also improv, by the way. But I did not, kind of know I was gonna be like, oh, I'm gonna be a keynote speaker. But I think the earliest signs of it was like I was a little baby keynote speaker in about fifth grade, because from fifth grade to eighth grade, I was the weirdo who was doing, like, I didn't do volleyball, I didn't do soccer, I tried it all, but I was like, oh, the ball, like I hated it. Um, I eventually got into like pom poms and dance, but I did speech meets. And
Okay.
Joe, I wasn't like debate speech. I'm talking about get a monologue from my fifth grade teacher, Mrs. Brown,
Uh-huh.
and go memorize that monologue, add your own swagger to it, and then go perform that monologue to people all across Missouri and the region in the Midwest to potentially win ribbons for your ability to orate and perform and tell those stories. My dad to this day is like, where did you come? Like, where did that come from? Where did you come from? He's like, I would have to travel all around the region with you. Cause Joe, I was stacking up blue and gold ribbons. And so I was like a little baby keynote speaker. And I remember Miss Brown wrote in my 8th grade notebook, and I still have it to this day, like, go do something with that. Go do something with that in the world. You should be on stage. You should be performing. Make sure you tap into that. Lean more into that in high school. Don't lose that. But I was from 5th to 8th grade in speech meets, not debate, performance. And I remember being young, watching people, like how they would transform when I would transform, when I would get so into a story, when I would try something risky with a way something was written and put my swagger onto it, or add maybe a little component of my personal life into a piece of content that I was delivering. And I would watch, I was in 5th grade and I was making adults laugh.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
And like,
I
here
do.
we freaking are. Like, here we are. It's insane to me. And so it took me and we could talk about it. There was a hero's journey I had to go through to come back to it. But that was the earliest sign, like, of me doing, like, before the world told me, before I got scared, before I got
Yep.
embarrassed,
Right. Right.
before I knew I could be made fun of or hated on or trolled on, or that, bad survey reviews could come through or whatever. Like, before the world tells you to, like, shh,
Yep.
I was out there doing that. And now here I am doing it again with a little bit more courage.
I love it. We do every time we talk. Our stories are really similar. I grew up
Really?
very active in my church, and
Mm.
they actually had me like preaching when I was like 9, 10 years old. I think is a bit of a gimmick. But and then
Wow.
all the little church plays, I'd be the lead in as a little kid. So there's something, just whatever environment you end up in. I
We
think
had it.
if you're a performer, it just sort of finds its way out somehow, one way or another.
Yes.
And there's I'll just ask this: there is usually a little darkness or sadness on the flip side of being a performer.
Mm.
Have you found that true with your journey? It's been true with mine.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah,
for sure. No one
yeah,
is harder on me than I am on myself.
yeah,
It can be a lonely road, right? You can see all the highlight reels you want on Instagram. I literally, before we got on the air, just finished editing a video with a really inspiring voiceover talking
right.
about go share your message to the world and all these photos of me on stage this year. And that all looks great. And it is great. God, I love what I do.
Yeah,
But it can be lonely and it can be
yeah,
hard, and you're away from your home and you're away from your family, and you can get deep in self-doubt. And, entrepreneur to entrepreneur, it is not for the faint of heart, because every day you wake up and you make your own gain, you make your own paycheck. How good you are kind of depends, like the next gig, it's a gig economy.
yep,
And so that's hard,
yeah,
and um so I think the shadow side of it is the loneliness, the overthinking, the self-doubt, the asking for too many opinions. What do you think? What do you think? What do you think? What do you
yeah,
think?
yeah,
Instead of like trusting, like, you know what I mean? And just really, keeping the main thing. I'm like you, a big visionary. I'm guessing I know you, and I
yeah,
see what you create. I'm a visionary thinker, and that can distract me sometimes. And I think that it robs our focus. And when we lose focus, we can lose our fortune. And so I work really hard on, like, trying to keep the main thing, the main thing. Like, what's my unfair advantage? I'm really good on stage. Stay the game, Judi. Go build other things, great, but use this to fund it.
yeah.
Like, keep your eyes on the prize. And so those are just some of the shadow sides of speaking
Sure.
professionally. But the good outweighs the bad. That's why I guess I keep going, right?
Oh, well, you're very good at it, and you help a ton of people.
Thank
Um,
you.
so let's get back into thinking about what we call dragons. So there are obviously things that appear in your life that try to stop you from your potential,
Mhm.
and they're sometimes interior, sometimes exterior. But so in your journey to become who you were today, when I just asked you that question, what were the dragons you had to slay? Do you kind of know immediately what they were?
A little bit, and honestly, and it's still true to this day, it's
Yeah,
myself.
yeah,
Um, I well, there's let's just address the mental health stuff, right? Like, feeling like a fraud and imposter
hmm,
syndrome and self-doubt and overthinking and perfectionism and all that BS, right? Like,
hmm,
I block a lot of my blessings because I, probably overthink too much. And, I think I now know how to. I mean, I wrote a book called Fear is My Homeboy. I realized that success isn't the absence of the fear, it's going scared. It's doing it despite fear. And I've built up because of improv and so many other things. I mean, I've built up my tolerance for pain. So now I have a hot, I'm gonna go do stuff. And okay, like even coming out to work with you, I was like, all right.
Yeah.
I'm either going to win or I'm going to learn, but I will not lose. And I'm also in great hands with an incredible creative production team who is going to set me up for success. Like I trusted in myself, but I think I am my biggest dragon. I'm always trying to tame that beast.
Mhm.
And we were working with an agency earlier in the year to sort of get some clarity on a brand I thought I wanted to build that felt right, and it felt next, and it felt safe, and it felt like I'm going to teach this new
Yeah.
methodology and I'm putting it in a box because it's going to be marketable and that's what we're going to do. And as we were doing that with this agency, we were with them for 6 months. When I say we, it was my COO, Amanda, and myself, and our designer, Brian. We were all sort of in these meetings, and what the agency was watching was constant visionary whiplash. It
Yeah.
was like they likened me to so much so to the point where everybody had a hard time working with me because I was constantly changing. Oh, no, we're going to do this. Actually,
Yeah.
no, never mind. I changed my mind. Guys,
Yeah.
wait, great. We're 2 months in on this. Never mind. We're going to change the Instagram handle. Here's where we're going. And everybody's like, now we have to what? And so much so that the owner of the agency, who's a deeply respected friend of mine, got me on the phone and said, we need to talk.
Yeah.
You've got some visionary whiplash here. It's like she likened me to a dragon who has all this big stoic energy, but then I turn around to say hi to this thing over here and my tail would go whoosh and knock
That's a
everybody
great
over.
analogy.
Isn't
That's
that
a
great?
creative agency analogy right there for sure. Yeah.
Right. And the way they presented that information to me wasn't like, you suck, you're hard to work with. Oh my
Yeah.
God, we're annoyed, defensive, defensive, defensive. It was like very much given in love and respect and help us help you. And it changed my business last year. We started reading books like Rocket Fuel to help us get focused and just really tame the dragon a little bit. So I am the dragon. I'm very aware of that, but I also know that sometimes outside forces can be a dragon. It's keeping those blinders on, looking at my own work, being inspired, but keeping my eyes on my own paper and trusting, again, that Dorothy inside of me. Like, I've got it. The ruby red slippers are mine. I just got to put them on. Like,
Yeah.
I have it all. And I
Mhm.
don't need to ask for 1,000 opinions here. Like, trust yourself, Judi, make a move. And if it doesn't work, what a great story you'll have to tell. Like, go write about it. Go
Yeah.
talk about it. Go speak about it. Right.
Yeah. For some reason, that reminds me of the Wonder Woman movie, the first one that came out 5 years ago or so.
Mm,
That give her a sword, and we talk about how the sword in the journey represents your power, and they
so
call the
good.
sword the God Killer. And then it disintegrates at one point, and the whoever she's fighting, I only saw the movie once, says the sword was never the God Killer, you are.
Oh,
And kind of in every great story, there's that moment where we realize we've externalized a lot of dragons, and sometimes we just get life just comes at us. The tornado comes to Kansas, right? But a lot of times it is us, and it's that insecurity in us that we're always trying to
for
chase.
sure.
And
The
yeah,
ego, right? All that, which is, for every strength you have, there's a shadow side to it, right? And so sometimes those guys are at battle with
yeah,
themselves. And so, yeah, there is that. I think owning it. I think I have the one thing I know, to your beautiful point, the sword disappearing like that. I felt that because um, we create a lot of our own drama. You know what I mean? And the one thing I know for sure about myself is I cannot be the victim in my life, and I
yeah,
will not be. I watched my mom do that for way too long. Like I'm either going to win or learn here, and things are happening for me. Even if I have to make it until I make it, even if I don't believe it, I'm like, okay, why is this happening? Like, why is this happening for me? Why is this happening for me? Even in deep loss, right? Deep loss. How's this happening for me? And I
yeah,
get asked a lot, Joe. This is something I was just talking to someone this morning about. Like, someone asked, how do you write? Like, how do you write your keynotes? And how do you write a good keynote? Like, how do you write a good book? And how
yeah,
do you make? Like, here's my answer to that: go live an interesting life. and then
Yeah.
come tell me about it. Like, you
Yeah.
want a good book? You want to make a movie? You want to fill up the scenes that make up a movie? You want to go write the next bestseller, the great novel that'll change the world? You got to have an interesting life. And I think people forget it. We fill our life with spreadsheets and calendar appointments and
Yeah.
algorithms and Google, and run real masculine a lot of the time. But I think when we open up, like, play, that's improv, like,
Yeah.
open up the ability to go play in your life, you start to go, oh, you know what I mean? Like, I get my greatest ideas when I'm hiking up a mountain, or
Yeah.
like running around Disneyland or whatever, right? Like, oh, you bring out this inner child
Yeah.
that helps you tame the
Showers.
dragon a
I take a
little.
lot of showers.
Showers, for
That's where you get
sure.
it.
Vacation. I came up
Yeah.
with the idea for my book literally on my honeymoon, reading another book. And it was like
Yeah.
an electric current. People talk about downloads. It was a download. I felt
Yeah.
a full body, visceral shift I had just read 2 lines in a book, disconnected from work, disconnected from my life. I was reading Big Magic by Elizabeth
Yeah.
Gilbert.
Yeah.
And it was in that book that I was like, I wrote in hot pink Sharpie on the side, or a highlighter rather. And I wrote, oh my God, that's it. Fear's my homeboy. I don't need to get rid, So yeah, I think that helps me tame the dragon too. It makes that sword disappear a little bit. Like, you've got to go seek the joy a little.
I mean,
Stop
there's a
taking
straight,
it so seriously.
for sure, a straight up lesson there on how disconnecting from your routine. I always feel like it's like we can know for months or years something, but we don't know that we know until we step away from our day to day, and then suddenly you're like, oh, I knew that. Why was it? You know what I mean? It's that breaking routine is huge in trying to figure out your life. Figuring it
Oh my
out.
gosh, I just heard yesterday. So I just finished a book about, I think it was by Chip Wilson. He was the founder of Lululemon. So I'm reading a lot of books right now
Mhm.
about like how they built these merchandise lines and manufacturing and all this stuff. I'm really interested in it right now. And he was telling the story exactly of this. So the cliff notes, and I may get it a little wrong, but the essence is he highly discouraged routine. This is the guy that showed up to work in board shorts. I mean, he started with
Yeah.
the ski apparel line and very outdoorsy and all this stuff. But he said, you think of Toyota or Ford or some of these motor companies. These people wake up and they go to their offices and they drive the same way to work every day. And they pride themselves on that. They get up, they do the same thing, and they're taking the car the same route, the same route, the same route, the same route. But yet you have maybe a Japanese motor company or someone over here waking up every day driving a different route. And they're seeing different things. They're seeing different cars, different vehicles. Oh my God, there's hybrids. Wow, that truck sits up really high. You, instead of driving to work and seeing just all the Fords driving to work, you're taking a different drive to work, seeing all kinds of different things and the other options that are available to people, which then in turn makes the potential creative team, the marketing team, the thought leadership team think differently about things. So I guess the whole moral of the story is you've got to shake it up. You want to try new things. You want to take a different drive to work. You want to meet. It's like avoiding this, like, birds of a feather stick together. That is so dangerous these days. Like, this is why SNL has writers' rooms, right? This is why we table read.
Yeah.
Like, I want your eyes on my work, right? And I do
Yeah.
that for my keynotes. I do that with my work because I want different eyes on the body of work, because I'm going to get different things from those other humans,
I absolutely do. Let's get to the reason. Sometimes you just have an instant connection with someone, and for me, it was a very specific part of our shared story. In that, basically, the Second City Improv changed both of our lives.
Big time.
And it is like one of the top 3 turning points of my entire life was when I connected with the Second City and what I learned training there, and then eventually getting to perform there a little. And so I don't meet a lot of people that have that exact same story. And I know you told some of it already, but a lot of folks listening to the podcast didn't hear your last keynote at Leadercast. So tell us how you found the Second City and improv, and let us in on that part of your life.
Yeah, it's we do share this, and for me it was transformational. It is a story that guides my life and is a constant awakening, and every single day. And here's what it is. I actually didn't take my first improv class till I was 30 years old.
Yeah.
Okay. So I am working by day. I've built
Which in improv world is like almost dead.
I
Like,
was a
most
fossil,
people are doing
guys.
it at 22, right? Or 19.
Ancient
Yeah.
fossil.
Right.
Ancient.
Me too. I started at 28, I think.
Yes, which we also have in common. So
Yeah.
weird. Yeah.
Yeah.
So crazy. So I mean, I was 30, right? And yeah, I mean, I have a career. I'm making some money. I'm in hotel sales and marketing by day, and I had just moved from St. Louis to Chicago by way of a big promotion. So I'm making my first six figures, and
Yeah.
I'm like living in my place in Chicago, and I'm single and all this stuff. And I'm like, you know what? Clearly speech meets little baby keynote speaker Judi. I'm like, and I've always loved SNL, and I always have known about Second City. So I'm like, what do I have to lose? Let's just sign up for improv level A. Okay, doesn't require an audition. Just go. See you. Maybe there'll be a cute boy, although you come to find out pretty quick. You're not going to really meet your next. I don't know if you met your wife in improv, but
I did
it
not.
didn't really work. I wouldn't want to. I wouldn't want to date myself. So I looked outside the improv theater for love eventually. But I'm like, okay, maybe I could meet someone, whatever. I made some friends. I was new to the city. So I signed up for the basic classes, level A improv. I'm 30 years old. I paid a fee. They do not give you your money back. It is legit non-refundable. I walked all the way there, got to the improv classroom door, literally stood at the door and never went in. Never went in.
Yeah.
I remember lying when people asked me if I was lost. I was like, oh, there was a Chipotle in the bottom and like a Starbucks. It's like, actually, I'm looking for the Starbucks, or maybe I lied. I just acted like I was lost. Oh, my bad, wrong room, wrong day. Whatever I said, I got out of there. And it took me 2 years. Like the big fear, let's back up, was that I was too old, right? Everyone was going to make fun of me. Who did I think I was? I'm not even funny. All these kids trying to be on SNL. What am I doing?
So it was more about your age than actually the fear of doing improv, you think?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Insecurity,
Okay.
self-doubt over, again, that dragon. I am
Yeah.
the dragon, right? And the fear that I was too old was really my big freaking hang up. I felt so embarrassed about it, And so I quit, and it took me 2 years to go back. But I did it. At the age of 32, I went back, and we can click into why I went back, because I think that's even a story. But at 32, I went back. I paid the fee again. I walked all the way back, and this time I opened the door. And what's so cool is in one of my keynotes, I have a slide that I put up that shows my first ever improv ensemble. And literally the first woman I met when I opened the door, literally it was like, she was sitting, the first one I saw sitting on the bench, her name is Shelly. At the time, she was 55 years old. University of Chicago professor, taking improv to think on her feet in a classroom. We also had a guy named Frank, and I show him too, sales guy, 51 years old, wanted to be more confident. So, wow. That moment, me opening the door, despite my doubt, despite my own inner dragon, made the sword disappear. And look at what happened. I ended up quitting my job and starting a business and writing a book. And, here we are today. There are so many things that have happened on the other side of that choice. And it just proves to me that it's never too late, and you're never too old, and you do not have to be fearless. It is okay to be scared. And actually, if you're scared, you're probably doing it right. You should probably open the door. And it changed my life. So now I open doors, Joe. Now I'm like, boom, kick it open. Let's go. Right. I'm like, let's walk. Okay, great. Didn't like what was there. Cool. I can always close the door. Right. But I open doors and I jump. This is why when you call me, I go, okay, I'm going.
Yeah.
I'm going. I'm going to get on the plane. Thank God it was available, but I go. Right. Because I know there's something on the other side.
I never get tired of hearing. I think it's the third time I've heard you tell that story, and I never get tired of it. It's just and for a speaker teacher person myself, it just unfolds as metaphor so well. I know it's a true life story, but this first time when you told it, I thought of maybe you had opened that door the first time. You probably weren't the oldest one. You just didn't know it because you didn't open the door, right? Yeah.
God, and think about what I could have meant. I think about it all the time, a regret, man. That is what I am trying to avoid in my life. And I think about that. I'm like, God, who could have been in that room? Who would have been on my ensemble? Who would I have played with? That's probably on SNL right now. What could have happened, But I'm also like, how many doors are we not opening? What are we walking by every day that could actually change our lives, that could have the potential, whether it's a person and, a sales call we need to make? There's all these doors we walk by every day that could change the course of our lives. So I'm a little more curious now, and I move faster because of that moment, because I don't want to miss the magic.
And it makes me think, I know it's not the way you normally unpack this, but there's also the reality of sometimes you're not ready to go in, and maybe it wouldn't have been so impactful on you if you hadn't had to deal with the 2 years and it living in your brain.
That's big. That's
Because
big because
your
that's the
whole life
essence of
is
it.
because your whole story is that you went back and faced your fear, and part of that's, maybe you just weren't ready.
Damn, I
It's
got
just your
goosebumps
story's
on
just
that
so
one.
great. Your story's so great.
Thank you.
Um, Sadly, we're running out of time because I like talking to you.
It's so fun.
But the talk just a little bit. I usually ask like kind of a serious question, and then I'll think of a fun one here at the end. But um, so yes, and is the mantra of improv. I have it tattooed on my forearms,
I love it. I love it.
and it has become. And when Kelly Leonard was on here, he talked about it, and he said you would like this. I think he said for him, yes, and is at the beginning of everything. Even for improv, it's 101 improv. You always say yes, and now eventually you'll say no because you say no in the real world. He's like, but it's how I approach the beginning of everything. Is I'll say yes at first and add to it, and then eventually you do have to say no. I kind of love your stuff as an improv nerd, where you camp out a little more on the and, where I tend to do the yes. Could you talk about what yes and means to you, and specifically kind of what the and part means?
So good. Yeah, I think throughout the history of time and improv, those two words have always gone together. And truly, I think throughout time, yes has always kind of been the star. I mean, there
Yeah,
are books about yes and movies about being a yes man and a yes this and say yes and get more yes and yes, yes, yes. And yes gets you in the game. It
yeah,
is so important. But I think and is Batman and yes is Robin. Because if you don't move down the field, yes is you catching the ball.
yeah,
But if you don't move down the field, nothing's going to happen.
yeah,
And fear hates that because fear has one job to stop you. So yes, and helps us move through fear on an improv stage, but same in life because it keeps us keyword there moving. So I love the and because I love movement. I love movement because I know fear wants to stop me. And so if I know that, I have the antidote, which is movement, and is my movement. So yeah, of course, there are going to be no's. I love no's, right? No's are boundaries. No's
yeah.
protect your yeses, Joe, right?
Right.
Which is
Yeah,
why we love yes. We love yes because our yeses are a big deal,
yeah,
but no's can protect our yeses. So that's important. But I love it at the start of something, but I love it to keep continuing the things you
yeah,
love, right? Like
yeah,
if you want to live an extraordinary life, you have to keep moving despite the hard stuff. We can't stop the hard stuff from happening. So what do we do when we are faced with a rock bottom or a devastating loss or something we did, a global pandemic that shuts down our entire business and we're trying to figure out how to pay our mortgage, right? We have, yes, this is happening. And here's the next thing I can do. I don't need all the things, but what is the next thing? So to me,
yeah,
and is the next thing. It's not the best thing. It's the next thing. That's why
yeah.
I love it.
I love it too. So here's my fun question. I know for sure when you train in improv, you end up going to a ton of improv shows and performing with people. Uh, who is, whether you shared a stage with them or just watched them, who was the improviser that you were just the most starstruck by, where you're like, I can't believe they're making these choices?
Oh my God, Andrew Knox. I can't believe he's not famous. I'm like, how are you not on Saturday Night Live right now?
Yeah.
Chris Red was in Chris Red's on SNL right now. He was
Yep.
in my conservatory program. So we were all
Uh,
at Second City at the same time. And Andrew Knox, go look him up. I think he's soft Knox on Instagram. He is the most caring, giving, selfless. I mean, that's the secret of improv. It ain't about me. It's about making you look
Absolutely.
better than me. And
Absolutely.
that's a leadership skill and a leadership trait that I think everybody needs to hear these days. But Andrew is a star. He is hysterical. I adore him. He came to my book launch in Chicago. I want to see him get famous so hard. He's
Yeah.
brilliant. He's just,
I've got a few friends like that as well. That
uh,
come on, make it happen.
I don't know how he does it. It's so good, but you want to play with him because selfishly, I'm like,
Yeah.
he's gonna make me look amazing up here. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He's the
Absolutely,
best.
for sure.
Yeah, so good.
Yeah. Uh, Jason Sudeikis was one of my coaches. We're the same age, but I started late, like I
Stop.
said. And so in my like final level class, the coaches do the show with you. And I can remember being on stage. Just I was not there. I was just watching. I was
Out
in
of
the
body.
audience. I'm like, oh, I gotta respond to this guy. I was just amazed at the choices he was making. It was insane. He's a good
Oh, what a
dude.
gift to play with
Um,
him. Yeah, he's
yeah,
a legend. He's one of my all-time faves. Yeah. You know, Rachel Mason, Susan Messing, you know, I was never in
yeah.
class with them, but they both have taught me, and they're just, God, they're women that are just so
All right.
good. I'm like, you're not human.
We got our nerdy improv praise.
Yeah, we got it out. I feel
and
better.
our name dropping out of the way.
I feel
Mainly
better.
name dropping.
Yeah, I feel better.
But hey, did you learn to say I got your back before every show in improv?
Before
Was that
every
part-
show, my friend. Before every
Um,
show.
Okay, well, I got your back. I do. I'm here for you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. It goes both ways, my
Yeah.
friend. I got yours.
Thank you. If someone wants to connect with you, what's the best way to do that?
I think judiholler.com, my website. I'm on Instagram, probably the most personally, although we
Yeah.
are everywhere. So those are great places to connect with me. And of course, you know, if you haven't read my book, Fear is My Homeboy, it's a cool place to start. And honestly, just a great thing to read, certainly at the beginning of the year, as you think about how you want to show up a little more bravely. So those are my favorite places.
Thank you, Judi.
Guess too. Guess what it's called?
What's that?
Yes, and with
There
Judi
you go.
Holler. We're gonna get you on that show. You're coming
Let's
on my
do it.
show.
I got nothing. I sit here all day. I got nothing else to do.
Yeah, this is it. You got a great set.
Thank you, Judi. Have a great day. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you too. Ciao.